Nakuso asked, what do you enjoy doing besides Let's Playing? I am a big reader, so I like to read a lot of different books and genres of books. I enjoy watching television, of course, and movies. I'm a big animation fan, and so I watch a lot of animated shows like Archer, The Simpsons, Family Guy, Venture Brothers, Bob's Burgers, etc., etc., etc. And I am also a big fan of music, so I listen to a lot of music. And I'm also a big sports fan, primarily football and baseball. So I play fantasy sports. I try to play sports when I can, and I follow sports. So my favorite baseball team is the Milwaukee Brewers, and my favorite football team is the Indianapolis Colts. And other sports as well. I like tennis, golf, basketball, but I would say not basketball, football and baseball are my two kind of big and favorite sports. Mr. Rune DJ4 asked, what is your favorite game opening? Ooh, that's a tough one too. I like a lot of the game openings, and I'm a retro gamer, so I really like the older school style games. Now, obviously, graphically, they don't really match up to more current games, but they have that nostalgia aspect. So I really love the Persona openings, so Persona 3 and 4. I'm a big fan of Final Fantasy VIII's opening, although I'm not the hugest fan of the game itself. I like it, but it's not one of my favorites in the series. Final Fantasy IX's got a really great opening. Final Fantasy VI is kind of cool. There's a lot of intrigue about it. And, you know, the God of Wars typically have really awesome openings, too. If you're talking not just the FMV, but actually having to go in and do something as a part of the game opening up, you really can't go wrong with a God of War game. Favorite game you've ever played? Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, all-time favorite game. And what is your favorite anime? I don't have one. I'm not a big anime person. So I don't watch Dragon Ball Z. I don't really watch any of the other kind of really popular animes. The only thing that I actually have experience with that's sort of anime-like is the Persona series. And at some point I do want to watch the Persona anime. It looks pretty cool. For Persona 3 and 4, I think there's actually one for both. So that's my kind of cheating answer to that. I would say the Persona games are as close to an anime as I've actually enjoyed or experienced. Drumming Viking asked, what is the most disappointing game you have ever played, or game that you were disappointed in the way that it came out? Thankfully, there haven't been a ton of games that I've been super disappointed with. I tend to avoid games that suck, and so, you know, I don't buy games right away usually. I wait for a while, and then I buy them either when they're on sale, or once I know they've been out a while and people really enjoy them. So for example, I didn't get Skyrim until just recently when the Legendary Edition came out. And I waited because I didn't want to get it, because I knew the DLC would come out with it. The only kind of gaming experience I can think of where I was disappointed with a game is back in the day with the PS2, I think. I had really enjoyed the SmackDown games, the WWF/E games, for the PlayStation 1. So Know Your Role, SmackDown 1 and 2, or whatever. And then they put out a couple on the PS2. And I really enjoyed Here Comes the Pain, I think it was called. It had Brock Lesnar on the front. It was just really cool. It had a good story mode. It was kind of the first game that gave you a ton of options for character creation. It was just a really fun game. And so the next game that came out in the series I was really stoked about. So much so that I actually bought it brand new on day one. And I don't remember the name of it. But I went to GameStop and I bought it. Brought it home. Played it for like a half hour to an hour and absolutely hated it. They had changed some elements about it. I don't remember. It's kind of like I put it out of my mind. But I was so disappointed with it that I took it back to GameStop and I immediately traded it in. And I paid $50 for it, brand new, and I got $22 for it, no, $20 for it, trading it in the day it came out. So that was my experience with buying new games and trying to trade them in at GameStop. That is why I do not use GameStop anymore. I use eBay. And that is why I don't buy games on day one either. I wait for them to come down in price. Because I don't want a game like that I'm that disappointed in, that I lose that much money on. Because I actually just ended up rebuying SmackDown Here Comes the Pain and playing that over again. A used copy of that. So it was a bad experience, and I kind of learned my lesson from that. What is your favorite song in a video game? That's hard to say. There's a ton of soundtracks from a lot of games I really enjoy. I like Setzer's theme song / the airship theme from Final Fantasy VI. I like a lot of the Legend of Zelda music quite a bit. Final Fantasy VII, the Sephiroth battle, One Winged Angel is another song that comes to mind. There's not really one, but there are definitely a lot of different songs that kind of come to mind. Especially the Persona series has great music as well. Is there a game that a lot of people like, but you just can't seem to get into? That's, similar to an earlier question. And again, that's first-person shooters. I don't really like them. I don't really play them. And so that's pretty popular genre, but not really a game series that I enjoy. The Nawaf 258, and if I'm pronouncing that incorrectly, I apologize. What is your best ice stage on Sonic games? I hate ice stages. I don't have a best or a favorite. I suck at ice stages. I hate doing them, and I get through them as quickly as possible. So I don't really have a best or a favorite one. What is your best or favorite anime / video game opening song? Again, that's a tough one. Don't really watch anime. And there's a ton for video games. So if I have to pick an anime related type opening / song, I would go with the Persona series. I like both 3 and 4's opening quite a bit. And what is the hardest game you ever played and never beat? Probably Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link. That's kind of a, I don't know, it's sort of a little bit of an embarrassment on my part because I've never actually beat that game. I can only get to basically the third-ish dungeon in the game before I give up in frustration and or irritation. I have to beat it someday just for completion's sake. But that game, I just can't get my head around for whatever reason. The game mechanics, the style of the game, just not a big fan of it. And so it is a game that I have never beaten, and I would consider it to be a tough game. Terran in Turmoil 141 asks, how old are you? And there's actually quite a few personal questions coming up. I just had a birthday last year. It's coming up again, I guess, around the time of the first Q&A I did. And I'll link to the first Q&A in the description of this one, so you can check that one out if you want. But I actually just turned 31, so I am an old fart in that sense. Not your typical kind of current popular gamer or Let's Player. Most people are in their late teens, early 20s. I've been playing games for a very long time. I put off Let's Playing for a very long time. It's something I wanted to do since 2008 or 9, but I didn't really have the equipment or the time to do it. So last year was the first time I had that opportunity, and that's why I've kind of gotten into it now. What's your nationality? I am a U.S. citizen, born and raised in the United States. My heritage, kind of what my family comes from. I'm German. A lot of German background in my family. Also some Belgian and a little bit of French. So, not that I speak French or any of those languages, but... And my family doesn't really celebrate any of the kind of classic traditions or anything like that. So, you know, we don't really do a lot of German stuff or Belgian stuff, but that is kind of the heritage that my family's come from. What state do you live in? I live in Wisconsin, which is a state in the Midwest of the United States, upper Midwest, surrounded by Great Lakes. Born and raised here. And are you a cat or a dog person? I am a dog person. I've always been a dog person. I love dogs much more than cats. My favorite dogs, kind of breeds, are beagles and basically any hounds. So dash hounds, beagles, basset hounds. I enjoy all of those. Cats, never been a big fan of. I tolerate them. I can be around cats. I can play with them. I can pet them. But I would never own a cat, for example, or have a cat as a pet. Despite people's attempts to turn me into a cat person, Haley, I'm looking at you. It's not going to happen. I'm a dog person. Welsh Nutta 100. Do you plan on doing any live streams, speedrun, retro games, speedruns of retro games? Maybe. I have a Twitch account. I have never live streamed. I don't know how to live stream. I think it would be fun. I enjoy participating in live streams when other people do it. But the logistics of it, the technicalities of it, how to actually pull it off, that's kind of the barrier at this point. And time. I don't really have the time to do it. But it intrigues me. I would definitely be open to doing it, so that's a definite maybe in the future. What are your 3 favorite video games of all time? Favorite game of all time is... Can you name it, viewers? Come on, say it. It's The Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past. That is my favorite game of all time. My second favorite game of all time is Lunar 1 Silver Star Story Complete for the PlayStation 1. And my third favorite game of all time is Final Fantasy Tactics, which is my favorite Final Fantasy game. How did you start out making Let's Plays, inspirations, and other reasons? Necroscope 86 kind of started out interested in them when I was looking for some walkthroughs of some Resident Evil games back in the day, 2009-ish, and really enjoyed the videos I found, and kind of started watching other series, really enjoyed those, liked the idea of doing it, and so started doing it myself about a year ago. And what the hell is your avatar? My avatar is Marvin the robot from the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series of books / movie. And that is my favorite book of all time, Douglas Adams and book series. And he is my favorite character from that series. So when I started out with my channel, I wanted an avatar that I could kind of use that would become synonymous with me, that people could recognize. And I wanted something that was not copyright protected. So that is a picture of a bobblehead I actually have of Marvin in my home. And I use that as a way, again, kind of branding my channel so people know it's me. And it's kind of a unique image that's recognizable. And it's my own kind of image because it's my own bobblehead. The Metasapia 1 asks, how has your view on Let's Playing changed over the course of the past year? Well, when I started out Let's Playing, it was very much about informing. And so my first few videos, especially early videos in the Final Fantasy series, or Final Fantasy VI, are almost pure information. The whole time I'm talking about the game, for the most part, there's a little bit of reaction, but not a lot. And I'm kind of monotone, and I don't really like the videos, but they're okay. And they kind of show where I was at when I first started out. Now, to this day, I still like to inform, but Let's Playing, for the most part, is much more about entertaining. And so I try a lot more to react to stuff, to provide my personal opinions, you know, my reflections on the games, while also allowing the games to kind of speak for themselves, which I think is really important. I think some Let's Players, unfortunately, kind of overshadow games or try to overshadow games with their personality. And I think that's okay with some games, but it's not okay with other games. And so I really try to let the games kind of speak for themselves. So you won't really hear me talking during cutscenes. I try to let, if there's dialogue in the game, I let the dialogue go. I don't talk over it. And then I'll give you my reactions afterwards. And I would say that's kind of the biggest change. You know, when I started out, very informative. I wanted to do walkthroughs only for games I knew really well. Now I'm much more about entertaining. I still inform, but I want to make sure people are enjoying my videos. And I don't just do walkthroughs. So I do blind playthroughs, I do specialty playthroughs. I started this challenge series. So I'm kind of branching out and trying to expand kind of what I consider to be a Let's Play. It's not just walkthroughs, it can be a lot of other things. What's your favorite place in the world? General climate and such, if you don't want to go into detail. The Midwest. I love the Midwest. I love living here. I love being born here. I like the climate for the most part. It gets a little cold in Wisconsin during the winter, but I like that it doesn't get super hot during the summer. And basically the culture here, not the most diverse, so that's probably the biggest knock against it. But beyond that, I really like the Midwest quite a bit. So probably my favorite place. Which season and holiday do you like the most? I am a fall and spring guy, so I enjoy, you know, more moderate temperatures. I like cooler temperatures for the most part, so when the temperature is 50 to 70, that is ideal for me. And I like the changings of the seasons too. Not a big fan of snow, not a big fan of heat and humidity, but I like kind of those off seasons of fall and spring. And in terms of holidays, you know the big ones. I like Thanksgiving, I like Christmas. I have what I call Christmas 2, which is the NFL draft. And so I have personal holidays. Start of the baseball season is a personal holiday. But anytime I'm able to get together with family and friends for a holiday, to me, that is something I really enjoy doing. And if you were to create a game, what would it be like? I would do a retro-style role-playing game. So Japanese role-playing game style game. Did I just say game a ton of times? I think I did. So in a Final Fantasy vein, kind of the indie games out right now, Chronicles of a Dark Lord, I think it's called, is an example of something like that. That kind of homages and alludes to kind of really great and classic Japanese role-playing games. That is what I would do. I think there's a market for that, and I think it's something that game companies are not taking advantage of, and more indie companies and indie developers are actually doing a great job with. Nevea F-Lead. And again, if I pronounced that incorrectly, I apologize. Will you ever do Let's Plays of indie games for the PC, like Cthulhu Saves the World, Chronicles of a Dark Lord, or Bastion? And if so, can you confirm any at this point? I am a junior PC gamer. I have never been a PC gamer. Recently, I've gotten into PC games, and that was because of Rogue Legacy. Now I'm actually slowly amassing a PC collection, and I've been playing Faster Than Light and Fallout 1 actually recently. I would love to do some indie games like Chronicles of a Dark Lord. And basically, the only issue with that is time. And being able to record it, because my laptop is older, so it's hard for me to run my laptop and a PC game at the same time with a recording software like Bandicam. And I get lag, I get slowdown, I get problems. So I'm doing that with Rogue Legacy, which I'm doing an abridged series of, and I would love to do that with a game like Chronicles of a Dark Lord or Bastion, but it's going to take some tweaking and some time for me to be able to do that. What do you think of Xenogears in terms of the game and the story? I have never played Xenogears. It's actually one of the big kind of classic, really popular role-playing games I haven't played, along with like Vagrant Story. I can't even think of the name of it off the top of my head. Another PS1 era game by Square. I've heard it's got a really awesome story. It's got some interesting battle mechanics, and definitely you're recommending it to me. So, you know, I would certainly be open to giving that a shot. I think it's $10 on PSN, so, you know, I'll get around to it eventually, I would imagine. And I'll let you know once I actually play it, what I think of it. And are you going to do Final Fantasy IV at any point in the future? Yes, I'm going to do every Final Fantasy game. So I will be getting to 4 eventually. I'll be doing 1, 2, and 3 first, but I'll be getting to 4. So I would anticipate sometime maybe late next year, 2014, fallish, is when I'll actually get to 4. Because I should finish up 1, you know, this fall, start 2, probably finish up 2 next spring, and then I'll probably do 3 during the summer next year and into fall. And so, yeah, 4 will probably be in a year from this fall, as I do them in order. Gary Waltz asks, what consoles did you grow up with? First few consoles I had an NES, I had a Game Boy, if you consider handhelds to be a console. The first kind of console that really got me into games. Now, Super Mario Brothers on the NES was the game that got me into gaming, but the Super Nintendo was the first system that I really got addicted to. And so, Mario World, Legend of Zelda Link to the Past, Chrono Trigger, Super Mario RPG, Final Fantasy III at that time, which is 6. Those were the games that really got me hooked on video gaming. And so the Super Nintendo is probably the system I played the most and was the most important formatively for me as a gamer. I definitely have played a lot of PlayStation 1, 2, and 3, Wii, DS, Game Boy Advance, etc. But I would say the Super Nintendo was kind of the kind of system I grew up with that was most important. What television shows and films have you been watching? Shows, Walking Dead, I watch, Venture Brothers, Archer. I occasionally will catch a Family Guy, South Park, and Simpsons. I tend to like the earlier stuff better of that. Other than that, I'm not a huge TV person, so I don't watch a lot of shows. Those are the big ones that I watch. In terms of movies, I like action movies, so I was really excited for Avengers. Iron Man 3 was pretty cool. Didn't see the Wolverine movie. We'll have to eventually. Need to see Despicable Me 2. Didn't get to see that this summer. And the Hobbit movies. Obviously, I like The Lord of the Rings quite a bit, and so I'm looking forward to Hobbit Part 2, although I don't know how they're going to make that into a 3-part series. Are you going to make a montage anyway since the vote was so close? No, I'm not. I don't have the time. I would love to make a montage also, but I just don't have the time to do it. So sorry, Q&A will have to hold you over. Chozo Rama asks, in your opinion, what's the best beginner's RPG to play for someone who has never played an RPG? Well, I guess that depends on whether or not you have a lot of patience, whether or not you like retro style graphics and those are acceptable to you, and whether or not you are more leaning towards like a shooter-ish type game or a swords and sorcery type game. The game that got me into role-playing games was Super Mario RPG. I think that is a great starting point for role-playing games. It's a kind of popular character that a lot of people like. It's got great role-playing game elements, and I think it kind of does a great job of pacing and balancing the game. And it's actually the game that's gotten my wife into playing video games, other than like Kirby, for example. So she's played and beaten that, and she's played and beaten the Paper Mario games. So Paper Mario the original, and she's just about ready to beat Thousand Year Door. And we're thinking about going on and playing Super Paper Mario. So I think those are great games because they're not, they're not terribly difficult. They're well balanced. They still have the RPG elements. They have a kind of common character that a lot of people like, so I think that's a good one to get people into role-playing games. Were there any LPs that you did that gave you a hard time making? I would say the hardest Let's Play for me, production-wise, has been Final Fantasy 1. And that is because I have to use an upscaler. Well, I don't have to use it, but I do. And my computer and recording software does not like the upscaler. So I have to use a workaround with that to get it to work, which involves recording my video and audio separately with different programs on different computers. And then I have to combine everything together into Sony Vegas, and I have to sync it all. And sometimes that works out pretty easily. I'm able to sync it fairly quickly, but sometimes it isn't. And so my third episode of Final Fantasy 1 took forever to sync and get it to work. So that one has been the most difficult and time-consuming. What are you most excited about for the next generation of games? PS4, Xbox One, Wii U. I'm actually most excited for the Wii U, which I consider next gen. Some people don't. I love retro games. That should be pretty apparent. So the Virtual Console is a big deal for me. I have a lot on my Wii, and I will definitely have a lot on my Wii U. And I like a lot of these kind of Nintendo franchises. So Zelda, Mario, etc. All those big names, Kirby. I'm going to look forward to future games in the series. And what is your best or favorite gaming guilty pleasure? Grand Theft Auto 3. I like to just run around and shoot people. So I'll boot that up every once in a while and just play through the beginning of the game in Liberty City. I like playing Fallout quite a bit. Again, just to kind of run around and mess with people and stuff like that. And I really enjoy Final Fantasy Tactics for the battle system, so I'll boot that up and play through the first couple battles and just kind of enjoy that as well. So those are kind of my gaming guilty pleasures. Games that I can just boot up and play anytime I feel like it. 84 Jave, which is the last person who asked me questions, asked, what is the one game out there you would absolutely love to see a prequel for? That's a tough one. I would love to see a prequel for Final Fantasy VI. And a sequel. I think Final Fantasy games are so great at kind of setting a mythos, kind of setting up the storyline with like a pre-idea of what was going on before the events of the game. And they kind of leave things in an interesting place too. So I think there's a lot going back to the original Magi War that you could do with a prequel to Final Fantasy VI, the lives of the characters beforehand, like Locke, for example, Sabin and Edgar. And I think there's a lot you could do afterwards as well. So I was super excited when they did Final Fantasy IV The After Years, because I was hoping that that was going to be a sign that they were going to start doing kind of old school style games that go back to these classic Final Fantasy games and add more to them. But unfortunately, it didn't. It was just for Final Fantasy IV. But I have hope that someday that'll be the case. Do you think you'll ever eventually pick up a GameCube component cable? No, not for the cost. They are $150 to $200. They are ridiculous. I'll use my upscaler. That's good enough for me. That's worth it. I cannot justify buying those cables. How long have you and your wife been married? Oh, sorry, lovely wife been married. We've been married for a little over 3 years. We got married in 2010, so it's coming up on 3.5 years. And who is your favorite wrestler of all time? There's a nice pitch into my wheelhouse as we just cross over an hour, apparently, of commentary here. Good lord. My favorite wrestler of all time is one of the two wrestlers that I actually follow on Twitter, and that is Chris Jericho. So I have enjoyed Chris Jericho's wrestling, his personality, his interviews, from back in the time when he was in WCW, back in the mid-ish to late-ish 90s, so 97 to 98. And then really got into him when he went to WWF in the late 90s, early 2000s. So Y2J, for me, some of the best charisma. He's very talented as a wrestler. He's a great storyteller. He's always got interesting ideas when it comes to matches and storylines. he's a great guy. He's very funny, very entertaining, and so he's someone I've just always enjoyed watching. Now, from being a kid, I of course was a Hulk Hogan fan back in the day. I mean, every kid was a Hulk Hogan fan. But I also really liked Bret Hart quite a bit, and also The Undertaker. And The Undertaker was the first person I liked that wasn't kind of a fan favorite character. Because he was a bad guy when he first came into the WWF or WWE. And he was really intriguing to me as a little kid. Because here was this kind of mysterious guy that actually beat Hulk Hogan for the title very early on in his career, and that was unheard of at the time in the early 90s. So I definitely have always liked Undertaker and Bret Hart as well, but Chris Jericho and the other wrestler I follow is CM Punk, who I would say is my second favorite current wrestler. And that is it. That was all of the questions that were asked of me. There was a lot. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate it. I am certainly happy that so many people asked so many great questions. Hopefully I answered them in the ways that is acceptable and the answers you were looking for. Probably do this again at some point in the future if you guys want it. This is the second Q&A. Again, I did do one previously. I'll link to that in the description. You can check that one out too. Some repeats, but some different questions as well. And huzzah for 1 year, even though it took me a month to do this video. Hard to believe that I've actually completed a year of Let's Playing, and I'm looking forward to many, many more years. Thank you again, everyone, for supporting me. Thank you for supporting me and my channel, providing me with feedback, all the great comments, liking my videos, sharing them, etc. I love talking to you. I love interacting with you. I love you all. So, as always, thanks for watching this video, and I will see you all next time. So long.